Oh, this is how we get down. What's good, everybody? Welcome into a Monday episode of the Coach and Company podcast. We do this 20 or 30 minutes is all that we go to support our morning show live on Stadium, YouTube, and socials. If you missed any of the morning show, I encourage you to go back and watch it on demand. We had probably 10 to 12 best bets, a lot of great analysis in the NBA and for Monday Night Football. Big last wild card game of the weekend, the Texans and the Steelers. There will be a Monday night grind tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time on our Coach and Company YouTube page and also right here on the X as well. Now, let's bring in my guy. And this weekend, the gamut of emotions. The man that the lows of lows all the way to the highs of highs, the biggest comeback in your franchise history. 21-3 at the half. What'd you guys score in the fourth? 25 points in the fourth quarter? Is that what you did? Before we move on, we've got to talk about that and what that did in your mind, Mikey, not only for the team, but for your quarterback and his confidence.
I'll sum it up with his post-game interview on the field with Amazon Prime. He said, we'll play the football game, and at the end of the game, you'll look at the score, and you'll see who wins. I mean, that is the greatest mindset to have as a second-year quarterback who now has an NFL record 7 fourth-quarter comebacks. There's something about talent, and then there's something about confidence and belief, Coach, and I don't have to explain any of those to you. When you have even a glimmer of talent, confidence and belief can take you even further, and that's what the Bears have.
It's really amazing. And now as we spin it forward just a little bit, the NFC, and it's not always, Mikey, where the records and the way that teams play throughout the regular season moves on into the playoffs. But that's exactly what we have because the NFC West was the best division in football, and it wasn't close. And now they have 3 of the 4 teams that are left in the playoffs are NFC West division teams. The 49ers, the Seahawks, they will play. And then the Rams will travel to Chicago. Right now, that is a Sunday game, TBD, because it'll be based off of what happens tonight. But what do you make of your matchup early on with the LA Rams?
I don't want to ever look too deep into an injury, but just announced as we were going live, Matthew Stafford has a sprained finger on his throwing hand that was suffered in the game against the Panthers. Sean McVay says he'll be okay. That's great. You can be okay coming into the game. One hit on a helmet, one hit on that hand. I mean, we saw it with Justin Herbert over the course of a month left in his season. You know, hand and finger injuries can linger. So I feel like this is going to be a test for the defense more than anything. And with their significant turnaround against Green Bay in the second half, the momentum should be on their side. But everyone's banged up coming into the divisional round.
Yeah, that was an injury that Stafford either had in the game or it got worse during the game. And he had, I think it was during the game because he had a great start. And then he kind of fell off just a little bit. He wasn't quite as accurate as he needed to be. But, man, Puka Nacua is a guy that is a first-team All-Pro. He wasn't even graded out above a 4th-round pick when he came out of college. I don't know that we've ever seen a player come out and dominate to the point that he dominates. How much does Puka and stopping him worry you?
I thought about this morning, Coach. I was like, if I'm Dennis Allen and Ben Johnson, like, how do I prepare my defense? Well, I just get Caleb Williams and a practice squad wide receiver, and I tell my defense, don't move until the offense, these 2 guys score 50 points. Because that's what it's going to feel like covering Puka Nacua. Everything's going to be a long pass. You guys cannot move, and you have to keep watching him go into the end zone or pick up big chunks of plays. Obviously, not going to happen, but the point being, if you guys don't lock in from the moment Puka Nacua steps on the field, and I don't even want to go as far as to say triple team, but have the right scheme, if there is one, to at least attempt to slow him down, you're just going to be burnt all game long.
Yeah, it certainly does feel that way. He had double-digit catches, just over 100 yards. He only averaged like 12 or 13 yards a catch. So he wasn't doing – he was doing what was needed. He was getting the first downs. He was keeping the drives going. I think it's going to be a fantastic game for the right to go to the NFC Championship game. Now, the other one is the 49ers and the Seahawks. Seahawks are the number one seed. It does feel like, because of how dynamic all the games were, except for the Chargers and Pats, that having that bye feels like a real advantage right now. Because the 49ers yesterday, they lose George Kittle, torn Achilles, devastating. And just like Tatum in the NBA, just like Halliburton in the NBA, timing of an injury, Mikey, it's so important. If this would have happened in September, okay. But now it happens in January. And Achilles, especially for a player of his age, you're talking about a full year recovery to get back good enough to play in the NFL, not just walk around like you and I do. How devastating to this team, not only in the here and now, but the future in your mind for George Kittle.
If I can, Coach, I'll start with a little hot take for the here and now. Not significant. Why? Because Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, you can't replace a George Kittle, but the Niners were the third most injured team from a week one starting lineup through the entire regular season this year. The other two were non-playoff teams. So that tells me Kyle Shanahan knows the type of players he has on his roster and knows he will build his system around those players. So right now, Jake Tungus will take over as the team starting tight end. He's not a bad tight end. So I think that my belief in Kyle Shanahan helps the 49ers. Long term, that's a big loss for George Kittle and the career of George Kittle as well.
I wonder if he'll be able to come back from this one. He is in he's in that 34, 35-year-old. I haven't looked, but certainly he and Travis Kelce are the OGs. They've started their own camp every single summer, the tight end camp. It's a brotherhood. And I think because of those two, they've elevated the salaries for top tight ends in the league. They're both making around $18 million a year. Remember, it was just a couple of years ago, Mikey, that a really good tight end was $8 to $10 million a year. So they've almost single-handedly, the two of them, that doesn't really make sense, but you know what I'm saying. They have doubled the salaries for the tight end. So that'll be the NFC, 49ers and Seattle, and the Rams and Chicago. Now, in the AFC, we have tonight, we'll get into in a second, Texans and the Steelers. But the other matchup, if I'm the Buffalo Bills, I can't ask for a better what's in front of me than what they have in front of them. Yesterday, Jacksonville had all the chances in the world to win that game, and they had the game seemingly in their hands. And what happens? The Bills figure it out. Josh Allen figures it out. And when all the announcers were saying, yep, Mahomes is out, Burrow's out, you know, Lamar Jackson's out, I felt like the narrative was going to be, yes, he's out now too. Somehow they figure it out. Somehow, Mikey, they move on. And Denver, to me, is the most flawed number one seed that we've seen probably in 5 to 10 years. They don't feel like a 14-3 team to me. Is this the team that Buffalo wanted to play? Just probably not away from home, but that's what it is in the playoffs moving forward.
Charles Barkley has guaranteed. I have absolutely, Coach. That's how I feel. I've been on the Buffalo Bills. I don't have to tell you, you know this. I've been on the Buffalo Bills all season. James Cook all season. The way they won that game just off of grit and determination, Coach, that was the worst game the Buffalo Bills could have had in a win. I mean, Josh Allen did not look good. James Cook did absolutely nothing. And they still, I never felt as if the Bills were truly dead to rights. I thought they always had a shot to win that game. They did win that game. So for me going into Denver, I mean, yes, you're playing with house money, but I have all the confidence in the world in the Bills going into next week.
He did complete 80% of his passes, 28 of 35, 273, one touchdown. He had 11 carries, but only for 33 yards, mainly because most of those were tush pushes. But, I mean, you look at his receiving core, Mikey, one guy had 12, Shakur. Nobody else had over 3. I think that's a real problem as they move forward. If he doesn't have a Shakur's like 5'9". He's nothing. You need a big time wideout on the outside that when they need to go get a touchdown, they can go get a touchdown against this Broncos team. I don't know who that guy is. Keon Coleman had one catch for 36 yards, and he's been the guy. He's the biggest guy. But how concerned are you with the way the offense is playing, that this defense for Denver, that might be the strength of their team?
Well, for me, I'm going to look at matchups in this one. Pat Surtain is the best cornerback in the NFL. And I would almost throw it out there. Would he be on Dalton Kincaid more than a wide receiver in this game?
Wow.
Because that's how Buffalo uses Kincaid, as a receiver. And he wasn't all that on Sunday afternoon. So I don't stress too much about the Bills' outside weapons when they absolutely had to have it late in the fourth quarter. Who did Josh Allen throw a 37-yard bomb to? Brandon Cooks? Who knew that guy was still in the league? Josh Allen did. It's all about what the quarterback knows he has at his disposal. And you mentioned Keon Coleman, former first-round pick. When are you going to earn your contract? I mean, this kid was suspended multiple games this year for conduct. Get on the field and show why they drafted you in the first round.
And get on the field and shut your mouth. Please do that. Just shut it. He was such a viral sensation when he was drafted because he was so funny. Just the way that he said certain things. It becomes not quite as funny when you're not producing. Because fans of your team, especially in a city like Buffalo, they have a very, very, very long leash. But once that leash is over, you better start catching some balls, Mr. Keon Coleman, which flips us over, Mikey, to tonight. Now, I saw Tony, former coach of the Buccaneers, Tony Dungy. So Tony Dungy put out this long post on X this morning. And I read the whole thing because I always try to read not even the betting stuff, just the people that I respect. And he put on X that basically it was a severe disadvantage to have a Monday night football game. And the more I read it, he's absolutely right. He said, Mikey, that the NFL did away with Monday night games in Week 18 because of the competitive disadvantage heading into the playoffs. So then why in the playoffs are you now having a Monday night game? So there's a shortened week guaranteed for one of these two teams. And then he also laid out a few other things because it's Saturday and it's Sunday. Do you think it's a disadvantage, especially, Mikey, when you have a 42-year-old quarterback?
Absolutely. Let's look ahead to next week. The Niners played in Sunday late afternoon, early evening. Mm-hmm. They'll play on Saturday against the Seattle Seahawks. By the way, that means going from Philadelphia up to Seattle and playing on a short week. The Bears, who played on Saturday night, they'll stay home and they'll play Sunday late afternoon. I don't understand the schedule makers. We praise the NFL all year at the brand for the way they set up the schedule, the matchups they made, and when they made them. But when you absolutely have to get it right, the playoffs, they fumbled big time early on here.
I think the tough thing, though, is for the Chicago game, to be specific, if they're playing the Rams and the Rams are already playing on Sunday, because you don't know who's going to win, and you had one team on each day, then somebody's going to get screwed. So I think they felt like if they play that game on Sunday, then it's good for everybody. It's full, so that's my thought process. Because you just don't know who's going to win. There's some coaches out there that don't give a shit. There's some coaches out there that will never let you see them be pissed off because it's not fair. I love coaches like that. I love coaches that don't make any excuses. Sure, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but you know what does make sense, Mikey? When somebody signs for $50 million or $40 million or $30 million, and where does that money come from? The TV contracts. And so ESPN, if they're going to pay billions a year, they're going to want their own Monday Night Football game. So it makes all the sense in the world to those people that are doing that. Now, tonight, certainly ESPN is very, very happy that they have an Aaron Rodgers Steelers team because no matter what you say, he still moves the needle, good and bad. What does he have to do tonight against a very, very difficult Texas defense to win this game on the field?
I honestly think it comes down to being great in the beginning and in the end. What that means is not that he has to have a complete 300-yard, 3 touchdown, maybe an interception. No, no, no. Aaron Rodgers has to get the Steelers off to a good start, however that may be. Then Pittsburgh can lean on their running game in the middle quarters, the second and the third. And when you absolutely have to have it, if it's a close game in the fourth quarter, DK Metcalf is back for a reason. Use him late in the fourth quarter. Every game we saw in the wild card, except for Sunday Night Football, came down to the final minutes. Actually, the final 2 minutes in most of those games. So I believe we'll see that again tonight, even if the Steelers are trailing. So open the game up good and end the game good if you're Aaron Rodgers. I think that's what Pittsburgh needs out of him.
I'm a little bit shocked from a betting perspective that the Steelers are favored by 3. Because I really thought when you're talking betting, people love to bet on the Steelers, the Packers, the Cowboys, and the 49ers. Those are the 4 big teams that people love to bet on. So with that being said, I was shocked because I thought even if you make this game, let's say pick 'em or even 1, I still think you're going to get equal amounts of money on both sides of the fence. I don't think you need to have it at 3, but the books clearly think that the Texans in a neutral site are 6 points better. So I know today Raphael had Kenneth Gainwell as one of his best bets. I think rushing and receiving was his bet today, right?
Yep.
So last week Gainwell had only 10 yards on the ground, but 64 yards, 8 catches in the air, which tells me, Mikey, that if he's going to get 8 catches and 9 targets a week ago, they're not changing that game plan this week. Aaron Rodgers is going to look at the guys that he absolutely trusts. So I love Gainwell tonight. What about you?
Yeah, I do as well. And I think bringing back DK Metcalf actually helps Gainwell, especially as a receiver, because the public train of thought is likely, DK's back. They'll just put Gainwell back in the backfield. No, like this is an extra slot receiver possibility for the Steelers. You have Calvin Austin, you have Pat Fryermuth. Who would have thought Pat Fryermuth on Sunday Night Football was going to be relevant last week? And he absolutely was. Big catch after big catch. We're now at a place where Aaron Rodgers, and just take it from me, coach, when Aaron Rodgers has his 3 to 4 favorite targets, he's going to go to those 3 or 4 favorite targets. I saw it for 15 years in the NFC North. I think we'll see it again tonight. So Gainwell, absolutely a guy I would be all over.
I know several of us were on the total. The over is only 38. When I look back at, and you take the Cleveland game out of it because they did not have DK Metcalf. And by the way, Mikey, not that he doesn't come off to me as a player who cares a whole lot about other teammates. I could be wrong, but it doesn't feel that way. Because if you did, you would never walk over and slap a fan in the middle of a game to cost you 2 games that, and I'm not saying he's the reason they lost to Cleveland, but he's all pro caliber. And when you don't have him, that's what happens. If they would have lost last week, what do you think would have been internally the attitudes towards Metcalf? Because the Steelers apparently had his back because they have guaranteed the guarantees that fell off when he got suspended. So that was a little bit surprising to me. So maybe the team does have his back. And if they do, maybe tonight we'll see that and they focus a lot on Metcalf getting into the game plan.
I think this comes down to the veterans in that locker room. Aaron Rodgers does not have much time left. Cam Hayward does not have much time left. So if they don't win against Baltimore, I think there's some serious animosity towards DK Metcalf because, man, you're an all-pro talent. We absolutely needed you on the field. One fan threw you off your game. What happens when we're on the field and an opposing cornerback shuts you down 3 straight plays and says something to you that you don't like? Are you going to go off the deep end there as well? So I think the fact that they got away with it, people are going to go, all right, big dog, we got you. We need you. We'll wrap our arms around you, but just stay level-headed. because I can guarantee you, Rodgers, Hayward, those guys I mentioned, they don't want their futures or any success they could go out with falling into the hands of DK Metcalf.
No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we saw what happened with Hayward in the offseason with the contract and all that kind of stuff. This is what you call in the business a grown ass man. And he has been for many, many, many years. The whole family of Haywards are badasses going back 30 years. So they have the right guys to call him on his BS if it were. Tonight we'll have Monday Night Grind at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll have more best bets. We'll break down the game, all the playmakers and all that kind of stuff. But kind of an early take. Let me ask you this. If Aaron Rodgers throws for over 200 yards, the Steelers
win. Because I do not trust the Houston Texans offense. We've praised their defense, rightfully so. But let's not forget what started turning around the Texan season, Coach. Davis Mills. I remember about a month and a half ago, you and I had the conversation. Hey, Mikey, is there a quarterback controversy in Houston? Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. But CJ Stroud has no reason to complain when you have Nico Collins and Jaden Higgins as your top two receivers. He just simply is not a guy I have trust and faith in the playoffs. You can have all the talent in the world, but I look at Trevor Lawrence, I look at Justin Herbert. These are guys who have all the talent in the world, no success in the playoffs, and that matters.
It absolutely matters. And you know, you and I love to text, we love to chop it up back and forth. Little things drive us crazy. And maybe you and I care a little bit too much. I would rather be that way than not care enough. But when you look at stories, you mentioned it, like a Hey Bear, or like the Steelers have been over 500 for 19 straight seasons. Mikey, at some point, winning has to matter. At some point, these narratives, and most of the time they're by people that have X accounts that aren't really shows, but they think they're shows because anybody can have a show. But at what point are we going to start saying, okay, you've been here for 20 years. We are a team that has 8 Super Bowl championships. If you can't get us to one, then we've got to move on. We've given you 20 years. The Ravens just did it with Harbaugh. And I don't know, Mikey, maybe you can tell me what you think. I don't know that the Ravens, if they wouldn't have gotten to the Super Bowl, if they wouldn't have done the exact same thing if they made it to one playoff game. 2, that's how precarious the situation is. Do you think in Pittsburgh, is it possible they win tonight, lose next week, and then still Tomlin either decides to leave or they decide they want him to leave?
I think if they win tonight, Tomlin's got another year minimum with this Steelers franchise. And I know that's saying a lot, Coach, but Mike Tomlin, to me, he really embodies just be good enough to get there, because I do think there are certain coaches. I don't have to tell you, you're a Chiefs guy. You know a name in Andy Reid. There are certain coaches who rise. We talk about players all the time. Mike Tomlin, despite not winning all these Super Bowls, I think he is truly built to coach at his highest level in big games. Now, if a kicker misses a field goal, that's that, right? But showing up, being competitive when it matters most, I think that's where Mike Tomlin excels, win or lose. But if they win tonight, I think Mike Tomlin gets one more year.
Let me ask you this, because I've been thinking about all the different angles of this. And when you're a coach that is beloved, like John Harbaugh is asking for $20 million a year, which when I first saw the list of demands that were reported by, I can't remember who, but I thought, crazy. And then when you stop and think about it, it was years and years ago. Remember when Nick Saban became the first coach to go over $10 million? And then you had Jimbo Fisher got to that $11 million. And now really, really good coaches in the league and in college are commanding that, what Lane Kiffin get almost $12 million a year. So in the NFL, it should not be that crazy for a guy like John Harbaugh to say, you know what? You want me? You want my 18 years? You want to have a turnkey, at least perception-wise? Then it's going to cost you $20 million per. Steve Kerr makes $18 million a year coaching the Golden State Warriors. And the NFL makes far more money than the NBA does. And so I feel like with Tomlin, maybe for the first time in a long time, we have a coach walk away from a playoff team just because there's a couple of other stops. I think it'd be kind of fun to coach in Miami towards the tail end of my career. I'd love to live in Miami. So do you think that Mike Tomlin could do the unthinkable and walk away from the team, even if the team does not walk away from him?
Yeah, but I'm going to keep you on your toes here, coach. I think if he walks away, it's for TV. Because I look at the vacancies
Hmm.
open around the NFL, and we could name them all, but everyone knows who they are, right? Arizona, Vegas, all those teams. None of those teams have structure except for one to me, and that's Baltimore. Would Mike Tomlin do that after 18 years? I don't think so. It would be the greatest heel. I mean, move over John
Wow.
Cena. It would be the greatest heel turn of all time. But there's no structure, and I don't think aging coaches. And I have to go back to Andy Reid. He left Philly at the right time. I think after 18 years for Mike Tomlin, you don't want to start over. Most of these teams with vacancies are looking for a quarterback and a head coach. So to command a long-term commitment out of any of them, I just don't see Mike Tomlin doing it. So if he walked away, I think it's for a broadcast because he would be so good on TV with the energy he carries.
Well, he could probably command. I'm just thinking salaries because all these coaches don't. I remember having many a meal with Flip Saunders, the late great NBA coach. Love that guy. Rest in peace. And he gave me a lot of behind the scenes type of stuff. And he said the hardest thing for coaches to digest is when you go from a coaching salary, head coaching, and you go to a TV salary. Now I can tell this story because, well, I don't think he's going to care at this point. Uh, and so when he got fired by the Wizards, there's a thing that most people don't understand called a what's it called? Something compete. Well, basically, he was making $4 million a year with Washington. Okay, he can't then go to ESPN and make even a dollar and keep that dollar. Meaning, it's called an offset. So that's why in all these contracts it says the coaches have to try and get employment. Try is the key word in those contracts. So he came to ESPN. Why did he do that? He wanted to keep his face and his voice relative and relevant, not relative. And he did exactly that. So they paid him 40 days, $4,000 a day. So $160,000. And they called him when the playoffs started and they said, "Hey, man, you're doing great. Would you like to do the playoffs?" He goes, "No, I'm good." Now, why did he say no to that? Because he had already got out of it what he wanted. And that was for people to hear him, see him. And they ended up going back to Minnesota, became the president of player ops or whatever it was. And I think that's a big reason why a lot of guys do it. And they hate the fall off in salary, though. But for Tomlin, he's made what? He's got plenty of money, probably. He's made $6 to $10 million for north of 10 years. So maybe money wouldn't be an issue. Where do you think he would fit in best at? Would it be Fox? Would it be CBS is losing Matt Ryan, who's going to go to the Falcons, or maybe even ESPN?
I honestly think it's ESPN, and not because the worldwide leader, but because what do we love? We love chaos and content. And can you just imagine Stephen A. Smith popping off on something and Mike Tomlin? Because with all due respect to ESPN, sometimes you truly do need a guy who's not only been in the trenches, but is not afraid to speak his mind. And that's why to this day, no matter what the public thinks of him, I love a Rex Ryan. A Rex Ryan who hasn't been on the sidelines in, I think, a decade. For him to take shots like he did at Matt Eberflus, if he wants a better seat, buy a ticket. Only a coach could get away with saying that. Because if a player says that or an analyst says that, they're bitter. I think you got to have more coaches come into the biggest networks with a little bit of bravado. And I think Mike Tomlin would provide that.
Man, I'm so glad you just said that because I remember when I had my radio show at ESPN and they would have um, analysts would get booked by the day. So I remember Herm Edwards, he lived in California. So let's say he was 60 days. Well, you don't get paid for the travel days. So essentially, you're traveling in, working, and then traveling home. So he would always come in and he would want them to book him for 6 or 7 days so he can knock those out instead of like 2 day trips, right? So I'll never forget one day. Do you remember the coach? He coached the Jets. I think he was the head coach of the 49ers, Eric
Mangini.
Mangini. So Eric Mangini. And what they do is they'll give you a list, and whoever's on that day, you're like, all right, you want an NFL analyst? You're going to use this guy because that's who we have booked today. And I remember Eric Mangini, and it's probably why he's not on TV anymore, but he used to talk like this, and he'd have his hands like this, and he'd be like, Coach, it's not as simple as you are making it. And I'll never forget the one day I said, I'm never booking him again, is I asked him a question, and he said, you know what, Coach? They're going to have to play good on offense and defense in order to be successful today. And I was like, hot take, hot take. And my point is that some coaches, they want to do it not to be edgy, not to give hot takes, but just to hold their position and not piss anybody off in the league. Because they're like, if I say anything negative about the 49ers, I can't go coach there. I deal with it in wrestling right now. Like, I don't want to say anything about that organization because I think a lot of coaches, to your point, don't do that. They don't say what's really on their minds because they're scared of not getting back in the league. Do you believe that?
Yes, but I hope we're turning an angle here in 2026. And I don't want to disrespect anyone who's been in the business for 30, 40 years, but this new age of media where you can be a fan of an organization or a sport or truly just stay true to your feelings and not have to worry about pissing someone off, as you put it, right? Because we're starting to see a lot of media, whether it be remote shows like these or studio shows, allowing people who weren't in football for 20 years getting the right to share their opinions. So for me, yes, coaches do not want to do that, but some coaches, I feel like when it comes to coaches, they can be a little bit more edgy than former players because public perception would be, this player is just trying to be relevant.
Yeah.
Whereas coaches like Mike Tomlin, you go, well, he was in the NFL for 20 years. He's literally seen it all.
He has, and I think some of these player-driven shows or player-driven podcasts, they're starting to understand what resonates. Edgy resonates. Being a little push-pull, that resonates. Anytime I give a vanilla take on X, doesn't do anything. If I give like a little bit of edge, man, it just blows up. It's really, really easy to do, as long as though you stay true to really what you believe. Because if you become a character, and all of a sudden you start throwing bullshit out there, it'll come back and bite you in a hurry. All right, I've already gone against everything I believe in. We've gone over 30 minutes, and so I apologize for that. We like to never go over 20 or 30. Mikey, a little preview. What do you think we'll have tonight for the grind?
I'm going to stay with the theme, Coach. Ready for this?
Okay.
It's a Mangini take. If whoever scores more points than the other team, they will win the game. That's the hard hitting analysis.
Hot take. All right, we'll be here at 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight, right after the Coach and Bro show on our BTT YouTube page. Easiest thing to do, just go to my bio on IG. We've got all the links there, and come be a part of our family. Come be a part of the universe that we have every single day that we're building by the day, thanks to all of you. And, oh, by the way, I would encourage you to subscribe to SiriusXM. I got a little show we like to call Off the Ropes, 2 to 4 Eastern time, every single weekday. I'll see you there as well. All right, that's going to do it for Mikey P, producer man. I am the coach. We'll see you tomorrow right here on the Coaching Company podcast. Have a good day.